Okay. Okay, are we on? Yeah. Okay. Everybody's going to see that I am by myself today. And we had a bit of a disaster this morning. We did. And everybody's been running and searching and searching and running. And poor Sarah is still running and searching. Her quilt top that she made in our first few sessions has strangely disappeared. And so we are blaming the cruisers because we figure when they were over in this building packing everything up, crazy, packing everything up, trying to get it to the cruise ship, I think they took her quilt top with them. So she's probably going to have to make another one to show on the next show. But what I was going to show today, I was going to take Sarah's quilt top and I was going to show you how I accurately measure to put borders on, inner borders, outer borders, sashing, because there are so many different ways to do it. Some people just slap their border down, stitch it, and then when you get to the long arm or when you get to your sewing machine to quilt it, the outside border is all wavy because usually the center of your quilt is shorter than the edges, and that's just the nature of the beast. And when I make my quilts, when I'm working on a quilt top and I'm working on my cutting table, I'm doing something, whatever I'm doing, pinning, whatever, I always scoop it up in my hands and take it to my next step. I never grab it by the edge and take it because then it stretches. And almost all quilts will stretch, and almost all quilts, the outside edges will be longer than the center. So, to get started with that, this is the book we've been working from, the Fast and Fun 3-Yard Quilts. We'll talk about that later. And I did bring some show and tell today. It's the quilts I've made for my new great-granddaughter. So, we're going to pretend that this is Sarah's quilt right here. Let's go this way. Okay. And I don't want to start cutting fabric off of these bolts because evidently they're out here getting ready for kits. But let's pretend that right here from the bolt to here is our quilt top, okay? And let's pretend that this is our first border that we're going to sew on. Now, just like I told you, the outside edges of this quilt will invariably be longer than the center. I mean, I've never had a quilt that's so square that they're all identical, okay? So what I do is I go to the center of the quilt. I take the piece that I've cut for my border. Now, this would be a large quilt, so this piece would probably be pieced. 1, 2, 3, however many we would need. And I lay it down at the center. And I learned this, by the way, by my friend Kathy Hudak. She taught this at a quilt shop in Finleyville called Quilter's Corner. Okay, so I lay it across the center like this. I fold it back to the edge of my quilt top, just like that. Okay. Once I folded it back, I take a nice sharp pair of scissors, like my favorite ones, my Karen K. Buckley's, and right on this fold, right on this fold, I just take the tiniest little nick like this. Then when I take it over to the edge of my quilt, this little nick that I cut out of there will go, where is it? I don't see it now. There it is. It'll go on the edge of the quilt. Down here on this edge. I do the same thing up here. I'm going to fold this back, make a little crease with my finger. I'll pick that up and I just nip just a little V out of that. Okay? So now the outside of this quilt is longer than the center. I guarantee it. So I bring it over here, and I'm actually going to turn this so my notch is on the outside. And I take this, and I know we have pins here somewhere. That's one thing I forgot to get out.
There's some right over there.
Okay, I see them. And I pin it right here. Right, so that notch is right on the edge of the end of the quilt. Then I would come up here. Now this one is going to work because this is just a piece of fabric. It's not a quilt top that has been manipulated and stretched and everything else. And I bring that one up to the other edge of my quilt so that I have my little notch right on the edge and I pin it. Now if this were a true quilt top and the bottom would be longer than the top, you would look underneath here and you would see that this is all wavy. So at that point, I try to attach this to something, maybe the wool pad on my ironing board. I attach it to something so that I can then pull and I pull my border, and I keep pulling and pulling until it fits the length of the outside of the quilt. So I pull a little bit, put my thumb there, and then I pin it. Then I start at that point and I pull, move down a little bit, and I pin it. And a husband is really good for this too, because he stands on the other side of the table and holds it for me. And you just keep doing that. So when you're cutting your borders, or you're cutting your thin borders or your outer borders, I try to always cut on the crosswise grain so that I have that give, that I can pull that border to match that waviness on the edge of my quilt. Does that make sense? If you cut on the lengthwise grain, there's no pull here. You have to make sure that your quilt is really, really square if you're going to use lengthwise grain for your borders, because you can't get that to stretch. Okay? All right, does anyone have any questions at all? But that's all I was going to show today, was how to put the borders on. And of course, then Sarah and I were going to pin it, and then she was going to stitch it, and it just didn't work out. Just didn't work out. We had everybody in mass hysteria here today looking for that. Okay, did that make sense what I said? How we do level binding. What do you mean by level binding? Our next session, we're going to try to have the quilt top done and all the borders on, and then we'll try to get Joni to teach us how to do the edge-to-edge quilting. Then we'll do the binding. But what do you mean by level binding? Yes, the same thing for your second and third border. Absolutely, Patricia. Once you put your two side borders on, then you'll press them out, and then you'll measure edge to edge in the center there, and then you'll move that to the top and bottom. Yes, we're going to show binding. That'll be the very end, after we do the quilting. I'm sorry there wasn't too much more to show today, but that was about it. And like I said, I didn't want to cut this all up just so I could explain how to put the borders on. But a lot of people will measure across their quilt. They'll measure how long it is here, how long it is here, how long it is over here, and then they add that together, and then they take the average. Well, average doesn't make it square, so this will make it square. This will make your edges the same length as your center. Okay? What else can I quilt show quality binding? Okay. I will. I'll show you how to do that. Mainly how to turn the corners, because you want your corners to be really, really square. And then by hand, you have to stitch the little, what do you call that? The little pleat in the corner, you stitch that down, because the quilt judges look for that. Yep.
Someone asked, how do you cut cross grain?
How do you cut cross grain from salvage to salvage? You'll have your fabric. Let me grab this bolt. I'll be right back. Okay. And by the way, I like this for binding because the stripe looks really cool.
It does.
So cross grain is when you cut from salvage to salvage. As your fabric is folded, this is cross grain. Lengthwise grain would be cutting parallel to the salvage. We don't stretch the binding. I'm stretching the borders. I'm not stretching the binding. If you don't stretch your border and make it fit the quilt, you will have bubbles along the edge of the quilt. It'll be very wavy if you just take your border and slap it on the quilt and just say, okay, I'm just going to put it on and make it fit. It's going to be wavy. But once we do that, and once we quilt it, the quilt's going to be perfectly square and flat, so you don't have to stretch your binding. Yeah, we're going to show, a mitered corner. Okay, we could show that. We can show that once we get Sarah's quilt top together. I'll show you how to do a mitered corner. Okay, Rita, what happened to Sarah? She's searching for her quilt top. We've lost it. So I just tried to show you a mock-up of what I was going to show you on her quilt top. Yes, I do both the horizontal and vertical borders. Yes, I always do my vertical borders first, press them out, then measure with your top and bottom border fabric again, just like I did. And then, oh, the width of the binding, I cut my binding 2.5 because I like having enough room to bring it around to the back and stitch it on by hand after I put it on the front. Some quilters cut theirs at 2.25, but that's a little bit of a struggle when you're trying to get it around. I don't like to struggle. Do your cutting, stitch length, and seam width apply when working with other fabrics? Knots and denim. Do you mean if you're making a quilt out of denim? Is that what you're asking me? If I was making a quilt out of denim, I would make a wider seam than 1/4 inch. And I probably would do a little longer stitch length, like probably a 2.5 or a 3. When you see let me show you on my quilts here. I'm going to show you the quilts I just made for my new great-granddaughter. Okay, here's the corner of your binding. Okay. Now I didn't stitch these down because they're not going to a quilt show. But can you see the little pleat there? Probably not because it's dark. Can you see it? Let me get something and stick it under there. How about my scissor? See, when you turn the corner with your binding, you get that little pleat. And when you're taking a quilt to a quilt show, then they always want to see that stitch down. Let me see. No, I didn't do that. Oh, wait. This one I haven't stitched the binding down by hand yet. And this binding I did it 2 colors. So I stitched the binding on by machine on the front. And we'll show all this when we do the binding episode. And then when you bring it to the back, you'll see that little pleat there. See the little pleat? I don't know what that's really called. I guess it's a miter, but I call it a little pleat. Okay, so that's your pleat in the corner of your binding. Oh, if a pattern calls for a scant 1/4 inch, how do you line up your presser foot? When I use the clear 1/4 inch presser foot from Baby Lock, I have the raw edge of my fabric so I can just barely see it on the edge of the foot. I don't have a clear 1/4 inch foot with me today, I don't believe.
You might have one out there. Do you want me to look?
Yeah, see if you have a clear 1/4 inch foot out there. Oh, Marilyn found her registration information. Good. She was in today, and I said something about a class tomorrow on the Radiance, and she said, "How'd you know about that?" I said, "Well, I registered mine." "Well, how did you do that?" So I told her the info was in there. She just didn't see it. Yeah, my new great-granddaughter's coming the end of March. I don't know if it's the 26th or 29th. But one of the quilts I made her was supposed to be made from flannel. And they live in Houston, Texas, so I didn't make it from flannel. I just made it from quilting cotton. Any other questions? Any more questions on how to measure for these borders? Because I'm always very accurate. My quilts always hang, when I put them in a quilt show, they hang perfectly square. And when you see a quilt hanging and the sides look like this, that means they just took 6 or 8 inches of fabric, laid it down and stitched it on the quilt and didn't measure it. What kind of thread do I use? That's a very good question because we were talking about that today. And we're going to show it on the show. I use RFL, either a tan or a gray. And I couldn't find the gray one to bring up to show you, but and you'll see that I do use RFL because I brought my spool from home because I thought we were actually going to be sewing today, so I apologize. I even wound a bobbin. In fact, I think it's the same color. Yes.
I couldn't find a clear 1/4 inch.
Oh, you couldn't find a clear 1/4 inch. Okay. Here's a 1/4 inch with a guide. So you can put this on. Let me grab this. I'm going to unpin this. Put the pins back. Okay, I guess we will go to the machine then. Oh, the embroidery foot's on there. Anyway, let's just do it here. You can take your 1/4 inch foot with a guide or without a guide, and you can put your fabric in the machine, and you can run it right against the guide, okay? Now, what you want to do, if you want to make sure you're getting a really, really good scant 1/4 inch, and the reason you have to have a scant 1/4 inch is when you go to press your fabric, that's called the turn of the cloth. When you turn that bend, when you press your fabric. So you have to allow for that, because if you're putting hundreds and thousands of pieces into a quilt top, you have to be accurate, or it's not going to turn out right. So that's called the turn of the cloth. So you do want a scant 1/4 inch. So what you do is you take 3 pieces of fabric, each cut 2.5 inches wide. They can just be even 6 inches long. And you're going to piece them with what you think is your scant 1/4 inch. Then you're going to press them. And when you're done, that should measure 6.5 inches wide. If it doesn't measure 6.5 inches wide, if it's narrower than 6.5 inches wide, then your 1/4 inch is too wide. If it's wider than 6.5 inches wide, you've got too scant of a 1/4 inch. Do you use the same thread for construction and quilting? I only use cotton for construction. And yes, I do use the same one in the bobbin. When I'm quilting, I'll use polyester, I'll use cotton, whatever. The reason you only use cotton when you piece is the minute cotton is produced, cotton fabric, it starts to degrade. It's going to get old, it's going to get weak, it's going to get tired. So you want your cotton thread in your quilt to age right along with the quilt. Because if somebody leans on your quilt or kids jump on the bed, if you have polyester thread in your seams, your quilt fabric's going to tear instead of the seam thread. Because polyester has no shelf life. It'll be around when we're all gone. But when you're quilting, you have 3 layers. You have a backing, a batting, and a top. So you can quilt with polyester, and if somebody jumps on your quilt, chances are that thread's going to snap before those 3 layers are going to tear. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions?
A few people asked if you could repeat the process one more time.
For putting the border on?
Yeah.
Sure. We certainly have plenty of time. Okay. Let me get this out of the way. And here we go again. Again, you have to have a good imagination today. You have to imagine that this is the quilt from the bolt of fabric to the end, okay? So now I've made this quilt. It's hundreds of pieces. And I've had it to the ironing board, I've had it to the sewing machine, I've had it to the cutting table, I've hauled it all over my basement. And I'm telling you right now, the outside edges, all of them, are going to be longer than through the center. It's just the nature of the beast. So I get my border. Let's say this side of this quilt is 24 inches. So I'd have my border fabric maybe 30. Okay? So then I lay it down in the center, because I want everything to be the same size as the center, right here. Okay? And I'm gonna let it go over here. I'm gonna let it go over here. So if this is 24 and 30, you'd have 3 inches here, 3 inches here. Then you're gonna fold this back right at the edge of your quilt top. Like this, right at the edge of your quilt top. You're gonna fold it back. Then I pick it up because I want to get that nice little pleat in there. Take a nice pair of sharp scissors and just nip the little corner off like that. So that now, let me see if you can see it on the white fabric better, maybe here. So that now you'll see you've cut a little tiny V in there. You want it to be small. You don't want a big, huge V, but you want it to be small, okay? And what side did I do that on? This side. So then I'm going to come up here. I'm going to take this guy, and I've moved it, so who knows. And I'm going to pull him back, and I'm going to pinch it. I'm just going to cut a little V there. Okay? Then he's the perfect length of the center of your quilt. Then you're going to move it out to the edge. And I guarantee you, when you lay it down, unless you are absolutely the most perfect quilter in the world, I pinned it so that the little V was right at the edge of the quilt. Then you're going to come down here. Let's move over so Sarah, so Kate can see. There we go. Then you're going to come down here, and chances are this little V is going to be, you know, like up here somewhere. He's not going to be at the edge anymore because I told you your edges are always, always longer. So I just pull him down and I pin him at the edge. Okay? Then, like I said, if you have a way to hold that top edge stable, if you have a way to hold this edge stable, you can pin it to your wool mat on your ironing board. Or like I said, if you have a partner, my husband will come down and hold it. And then we pull against each other like this. Okay? And then while we're pulling, I'll take my thumb and hold it here, and I'll put a pin in there. Then I start at that pin, and we pull again. And I stick another pin in. Then I start there, and I pull here. And you keep doing that, and when you're done, your border is going to, the side of your quilt now is going to be the same length as this. Now, the next key to this is, when you go to your sewing machine to stitch this, you want this border fabric on top because the sewing machine wants to push your top fabric and make it longer. And your feed dogs on the bottom want to gather this up. So you always sew with the border on top and the quilt on the bottom. And then that eases your border on also. Okay, squaring your quilt before you put the borders on. It all depends on what you're talking about. If you have blocks coming out here and there's points on those blocks where your triangles come together, you don't want to square that. You want to leave that, because if you square it, then when you put your border on, you're going to be chopping your points off of your blocks. Now, if it was something like a log cabin block, then you could square that. But I usually don't square my quilts on the edge unless something's really, really gone crazy. If it looks that crooked or it looks so bad you have to square it, I would start taking things apart and try to make them behave themselves. Melba says she has put 2 of the 3 borders on. Is it too late? I can't read underneath app. Is it too late?
Too late to use your method on
Well,
the 3rd border.
On the 3rd border. Okay, you've only put 2 on? 2 of the 3 borders. You only have 3 borders? You mean 4? No, when you put the 2 borders on, are they opposite each other, Melba? Like side to side and top to bottom? Where is she?
Might take a few seconds.
Will there be Radiance classes on YouTube? You have to ask Kate that.
Yeah, me and Tommy are planning on making some videos about each of our machines.
Oh, she and Tommy are going to make videos about all of the machines, and eventually they'll be on YouTube. Now, any of you who have a Radiance, do you know that there's classes tomorrow by Marty and by Patty, Marty, and Mike from 9 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon Central Time. So it'll be 10 to 4 here on the East Coast. Okay, Melba, you did your borders opposite each other, right? So now what you want to do is you want to lay it out. You want to press those borders out, and then you want to go to the center and measure. Okay, so if those were your side borders, you're going to measure across the middle of your quilt, and then you're going to notch your fabrics that size, and then you're going to move them up to the top and move the other one down to the bottom and make them fit, like I just showed with pinning and pulling and pressing and having your quilt on the feed teeth and your border on top. Okay. I never knew this either, Tammy. I always measured 3 times across the quilt, and it never worked out. But whenever Kathy Hudak showed me this, I was thrilled to learn it.
Someone asked, which cut do you prefer to do binding? Cross grain, lengthwise, or bias?
I do bias if there's any curves at all, but usually I do cross grain. I don't like lengthwise grain bias because it doesn't move. It's so tight and stable. I like something that moves a little bit, has a little movement to it. Where can we find those classes tomorrow? You'll have to contact Baby Lock. I had registered my Radiance with them, and then I got an email saying the classes were tomorrow. So if you register your Radiance, I guess maybe you'll get an email. I'm not sure. But I would go to Baby Lock's website and see if they have anything. Okay. Any other questions? Like I said, if you have a partner to pull on the edge of your, pull away from you on the quilt, that makes it easier. But if you don't, sometimes I'll put it on the cutting table if it's a small enough quilt, and I'll stack a bunch of books or something on the end of it so I can pull against it without pulling it out from under the books. Any way you can do it. Are you cutting your border salvage to salvage? I am, yes. Yes, I do. And then I piece them. Now, if there's a certain print that I have to cut them on lengthwise grain and I really want that print to look like that, I will. But I really like them side to side because they have some stretch to them. Yes, Melba, that's what I do. I measure, you'll press your side borders out, you'll measure it, you'll put your little notches in, and then you'll move it up to the top and one down to the bottom. Okay? And we would have had Sarah sewing them on today, and I could have helped her pull and tug, but like I said, she's still searching for her quilt top. Okay? Can I show you my show and tell now? Okay. We're going to show these later in the products, but these are the little pre-quilted quilts that Gloria gets in, and she has them in gray, pink, and blue. And this is the one I made for my new little granddaughter. I got it a little bit off center, but her name is Daisy, and their last name is Fatula. That's my grandson's last name. Mm-hmm. I taught a machine applique class not too long ago, and I was telling the ladies, and one of the women said, "Oh, my mother's name was Daisy." And this is, the baby's nursery is going to be gray and yellow. So I bought these fabrics, and then I decided not to use them for what I was going to use them for. So I just made this very basic little quilt in gray and yellow with the floral border. And this is going to be to put on the floor for her for tummy time. It's not meant to be anything special, but it'll match. Okay. It was just, I think 5.5-inch squares. And then I quilted it. If you look real close, it's an owl. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see the owl head right there? Can you see the owl, or can you see them here on the owl? It's hard to see, but they're little owls. Maybe on the back. Oh, no, you'll never see it on the back.
You can kind of see it.
Mm-hmm. Can you? Yeah, see the little wing there? Where am I going? I go backwards on the camera. There we go. There's a little wing. Okay. All right. And then this is her special quilt. And this, like I said, it was supposed to be flannels. But being that she's being born in Houston, Texas, I didn't think a flannel quilt was appropriate. So a friend of mine made this quilt, and I got the pattern from her. And my new granddaughter that married my grandson, she is from Puerto Rico. And she came here after Hurricane Maria because their home got destroyed. So that's how they met up in Connecticut when he was in college. And she loves raccoons because they don't have raccoons there.
Aww.
She says, we only have iguanas. So when they come to visit me here at night, I watch her. She stands at the sliding glass door and keeps watching for the raccoons to come because they come and eat our cat food. So anyway, I got this quilt pattern because she loves raccoons. And you'll see the little raccoon right here. And I haven't done satin stitch applique in a long time, so it was a little bit of a challenge. And then my grandson, her husband, he's a very avid deer hunter, so the deer is for him. Mm-hmm. And then there's the bunny, and then there's the fox. And it's supposed to look scrappy, so it's all different fabrics, to look scrappy. And the border is from the other great-grandma who passed away 2 years ago. She and I used to quilt together, and so I used this for the border, and it has praying angels on it. It's her fabric. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to I wanted to use her fabric. And then you'll see everything, it's quilted in all daisies. Each block has a daisy in it. The borders are all daisies. The appliques, I just meandered around them. Did a little bit of quilting inside their faces. So I think there's 122 daisies on here. But I just wanted to show because by the time we have our show again, they'll be mailed off to Houston. Oh, and the back is foxes. So anyway, I just had to brag and show my quilts. All right, Kate, are we ready to sell some stuff?
Yes.
Okay. All right, where are we starting?
I have us starting with the new 5-yard quilt book.
Okay. We'll just lay these here until it's time. Okay. Sherry did a great job with that.
She did.
Mm-hmm. This is the 5-yard quilt book. It's brand new. I haven't even looked at it yet. But I figure it's probably going to be just as fabulous as her 3-yard quilt books. I haven't even looked. But here's are the pictures on the back of some of the 5-yard quilts that are in here. And she usually has 8 quilts in each book, and there's 8 in this one. This is really pretty with all the batiks. Very, very nice. Okay. Are we going to stay with books, or am I going to show the kit now?
We can show the kit, and then I was going to show the 3-yard quilt.
Okay.
And then the
Okay. So these are the fabrics that, oh, it's the same fabric I used in class. I didn't realize that. These are the fabrics that Sherry over at the store picked out for us for our 5-yard quilt. See how pretty they are? And of course, we didn't have a chance to cut kits today because we were too busy searching. And these are the, see if I can get this one up here too. Okay, I think it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very pretty. And again, you could use this for your binding. It would make that nice stripe binding like I was showing. So I thought this was very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, you're going to move them?
These, yeah.
What's your back leaning out like that? You see when people are young. Okay, so we showed this. I'll do that. Okay, so we just grabbed a few of the 3-yard quilt books downstairs. And this is the one we're using for Sarah's quilt, as you can see here. And we picked what we thought to be the easiest one out of here. But we all agreed that it was the worst fabric selection ever in the history of the world. Because if you see Sarah's quilt top, it's gorgeous. And my daughter made a quilt top out of this too. It's gorgeous. But I don't like the fabrics they pick. So don't let that sway you, because it comes out really, really cute. Really cute. And it's a really, really easy one to start with if you're a brand new quilter. And these are the 8 that come in this one. And this one's called Fast and Fun.
Someone asked how big are the 5-yard quilts?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me look and see. Okay, this guy, right here, this is called Athena, is 52 by 72. They're a little larger than the 3-yard, obviously. This one is 54 by 72. 53 by 73. 55 by 63, so that one's more square. 52 by 68. Oh, this one has fractions. 56 and a half by 68 and a half. They're getting very exact. Okay, this guy's 50 by 70. Do we have any more? Yes. This one's 50 by 72. So they're slightly larger than the 3-yard. Okay? And Gloria and Steve got to meet these ladies at Quilt Market, and they said they were a scream. They were a lot of fun. Okay, it's a mother and daughter. Used to be just the mother, but if you look at their picture, There's no doubting they are mother and daughter. Look at that. Okay, this one is called The Magic of 3-Yard Quilts. So these are the 8 quilts that are inside. Okay. These are 1 block 3-yard quilts, which in my mind, most of them are. Most of them are the same block over and over again, but this is called 1 block. Okay. This is Quick as a Wink 3-yard quilts. This would probably be a pretty good beginner one too, right here. And this is Make It Easy with 3-yard quilts. I don't know how she comes up with so many ideas. Okay. Alrighty. Now let's show you some 3-yard quilt kits that we put together today. Okay. This is the first one I picked out because this is a fairly new line. I thought it was so pretty with the orange and that vanilla tan color in there with the striking black background. And then this would be almost like your solid piece. It doesn't have a whole lot of design to it. And then this to me would be the medium print. Because I like, you know, a bold print, a medium print, and one that reads a little more calm, a little more solid. Okay. Alrighty.
We've been using Peach Whiskers for a lot of stuff.
Oh, have we?
Recently, yeah.
Okay. Well, there's so much fabric on the bold. I picked them because I wanted to make sure we had enough kits for everybody. Okay. And now this is, I don't know the name of this line. Do you know the name of this line?
Garden Grace.
Okay. I picked the navy blue background with the butterflies because I wanted the lighter green as my, you know, solid, so to speak. And then this is your third one that could be used for sashing, binding. Again, stripes really make an impact in your quilt. I like stripes. Okay. This green is a little more, just a little bit more of a yellow green. And the green from the other pile was just a little bit more of a blue green. They're not identical. Very close, but not identical. Okay. What else do we have, dear?
We have some of the baby blankets.
Oh, the baby quilts? Okay. I showed you the gray quilt that had the embroidery on it for my granddaughter. But we also have them in pink and blue. They're exactly like the gray one. Let me get it again. And they're great for, I have a friend in California. Well, his daughter lives in California. And they tried for years to have children and could not. And they got a surrogate mother. And she got pregnant. And then they got pregnant.
Wow.
So they had 2 babies that were like 2 months apart.
Dang.
A boy and a girl.
Aww.
So I made them these, and the little girl was Logan, and the little boy was Luke, and I put their name on here. So that's what it looks like. It's beautifully quilted. And then this is what it is in pink and blue. Can you see that with the plastic? Yeah, it's better like that. Mm-hmm. Very pretty. Okay. Okay. I can reach them if you just tell me what we need. Okay, the RFL thread.
Do you want me to grab those bolts out of the way?
Sure. There you go. Okay. This is the RFL thread, and I showed you the spool I brought from home because I do love it. I have tan, gray, black, and white. And then I have large cones of a tan and a gray that I bought when I was at Quilt Festival. because RFL was there. And if you buy the large cone, it's like having 5 spools of this for the price of 4. So I don't know if Gloria could carry the large cones or not. We'll have to find that out. Any hints on working with these quilts as far as embroidery? You mean like the little gray one I just showed, Betty? You don't even have to use stabilizer. All you have to do is hoop it because it's thick enough it doesn't need stabilizer. Do we have white RFL? Yes. Yes, they have white. Oh, the quilts. I bet you're talking about the quilts. No, we don't have white. We have pink, blue, and gray. I don't even know if she can get white. I really have no idea. Okay.
What is the thread weight?
Oh, Lordy. I would say it's a 50.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a 50. 52 ply. And again, the finer the thread, the less your turn of the cloth, the more accurate your piecing will be. Oh, and I started to tell you about getting your scant 1/4 inch, and then I got lost. Once you measure that, if your 1/4 inch isn't scant enough, and when you fold that piece out and press it, if it's not 6.5 inches wide, if it's narrower, then you would go to your sewing machine, and with your needle movement button, left and right, you would move your needle just 1 tick to the right, just 1 tick to the right, and then do that process all over again with the 3 2.5 inch strips and press them. And then if you have 6.5 inches, once you've pressed them, then you'll know that you have your good scant 1/4 inch. What's the size of this quilt? Let me see. Somebody said, yes, there is a white quilt. I don't know.
This is 36 by 48.
Oh, it tells you? Okay. 36 by 48. Okay.
It looks like we do have a white quilt in the system, but I don't think we have any.
Right now in stock, I saw pink and blue. And I know Gloria, last time when she saw my gray one, she said, oh, I got to order more of those. So whether she did or not, I don't know. But if there's white in the system, they can get it.
All right. Now
Okay.
we have our rotary cutters.
Okay. This one and this one. Okay, we have the 45 millimeter Alpha cutter, and we have the 28. And I use a 28 almost always, unless I'm cutting something very, very, very thick. Okay, I like a 28. Here at the store, they like to use the 45s. And these are the splash cutters. So they're made so that you can change the blade real easy. I use 2 thumbs. You just do this. The blade falls out. Very carefully pick it up. We keep the old boxes that they come in like this. And that's where we put the used blades. Then you put your new blade down. Lay this back down. And then, lay this down. And then push this up. There you go. The old style rotary cutters, you had to take the nut off and the washer and this little piece of spring steel, and you had to line them all up so that you'd put them all back on the same way. Yep. Okay.
We've got the blades for those.
Oh, the blades for the rotary cutters. We have the 28 millimeter to fit this guy. We have the 45 millimeter to fit this guy. These are the titanium coated. Those are Gloria's favorites. Okay. One thing when you're putting them on, though, when you get them out of the box, you'll notice they're oiled. They're a little bit greasy. So they want to stick together. And many times you end up putting 2 blades in your rotary cutter. And you go to cut, and it's funny, it's all shredded. And so when you take them out of here, go like this with your fingers. Like this. And make sure that you don't have 2 together, because that'll slide them apart if you do that in the center where you're not going to get cut. Okay? Because when you put 2 in, it doesn't cut very well.
Now we have our 1/4 inch or a 1/4 inch.
Oh, 1/4 inch foot with a guide. This is the 1/4 inch foot that Sarah likes. My Lizzie, my granddaughter, who also works here in the week in the afternoon, she likes it too. This is the packaging, but this is what it looks like. It's a metal foot, and this one has a little bit of a larger opening. So if you're trying to get that scant 1/4 inch, you can move your needle over ever so slightly so that when your fabric rides here and your needle sews here, you're going to get your perfect scant 1/4 inch. Okay?
Someone asked what sewing pins do you like to use?
I have all different types at home, I'll be honest with you. Gloria likes these here. I find these to be great when you're pinning your binding on. You're going through lots and lots of layers. These are great because they don't bend, and we use them when we pin the bolts of fabric here. But when I'm pinning together just 2 thin layers of cotton, I like a thinner pin. Like the flathead flower pins is pretty much what I use when I'm just doing 2 layers of cotton. And I don't know if Gloria carries the flower pins or not. I'm not sure. But these will work. It's just that they're a little bit thicker. But they're great for when you're going through multiple heavy, thick layers. And that's these right here. Sarah maybe can show them. I mean, Mary can show them right now. I have Sarah on the brain. That's what we have here in our pin cushion, or the Bowen. And they do not bend, believe me. They're very strong. Okay.
Now we've got the Baby Lock magnifying lens.
Oh, we didn't get to show this today either. But this is my beloved Baby Lock magnifying lens. Anybody that watches me and watch me when I do my machine applique, this is just a must-have. And I know it fits on the Destiny. I know it fits on the Solaris. Now, when they came out with the Radiance and the Avenir, you'll notice when you're looking at your machine at the needle, the machine juts out to the left. So they have to come out with a new magnifier. This will not work. Because if you try to put it on, it doesn't, first of all, it would be at an angle, and secondly, it wouldn't be right in front of the needle because the machine sticks out further. So they're going to have to come out with a new magnifying lens, and I hope they do. But I still have my Solaris, so I'm able to use it on there. But I love this. And I only use 1 level of magnification, but the older you get, the more magnification you need. And I noticed right after I got mine, I said to Gloria, I'm a little disappointed. This thing keeps flopping down, I didn't realize that on the back here, there's a little wheel that looks like a gear. And you can take your fingernail and you can loosen it or tighten it. And when you tighten that, it tightens these up and then they don't flop down anymore. Okay? But I love it. I said the only thing wrong with this is when you have the magnifier up and you're sewing and you make the least little mistake. It looks so huge and you think to yourself, oh, I'm going to have to tear that out. Then when you take it out of the machine, the mistake isn't nearly as huge as you thought it was on the magnifier. Okay?
Then we have the bulk needles.
Oh, the bulk needles. These are the 8012s. That's what I use for piecing. These are universals, and I use these all the time. You can also use sharps. You can use 7511s also. But if you have the automatic needle threader, like the Destiny, the Solaris, the Radiance, don't go smaller than a 7511 needle because you'll break your needle threader. It doesn't like a smaller needle to go through the eye. But I always buy these in bulk because this is what I piece with. Now I know here in the store we piece with 9014 embroidery needles because that's the only needle Gloria ever puts in the machine. And it works, but I prefer these.
And then we have the bobbins.
Okay, this is the 100 pack of bobbins. And you know, I got these and I thought, oh, I don't know if I need that many, but you're really not supposed to use a bobbin over and over and over and over. I mean, you can rethread it a couple times, but they claim that they get out of shape and you should just pitch it. And these are so inexpensive. They are so worth it. They're a standard class 15 bobbin. They have that slightly blue tinted color to them, so you know that they're the good Baby Lock bobbins. And there's 100 in here, so you can share them with your friends or go together with a friend and buy a bag and split it. And as long as your sewing machine takes a class 15 bobbin, it doesn't have to be a Baby Lock or a Brother or these are just standard class 15 bobbins. How much are these for 100?
$39.95.
Oh. My gosh. What's that? 39 cents a piece. Yep.
Yeah.
39 cents a piece. You can't beat it.
I have the scissors.
Okay. These are the scissors that I used to make my little tiny wedge cuts at the edge of my border. Okay. And here they are in the package. They're the Karen K. Buckley Perfect Scissors. And they are perfect. They cut right down to the nubbin. You see that? Don't have your finger in the way because it'll take the edge of your finger too. They cut right to the tip. And they're serrated, so that they, you know, years ago when we used our Ginger scissors, and you would go to cut your fabric with your Ginger scissors. Sometimes you felt like your fabric was squirting out when you were cutting it. That'll never happen with these. They just cut beautifully. Never a complaint. Okay.
That is all we have for
Is that all we have for today? Any more questions before we wrap it up? About the wheel for the magnifying lens. Mine is forever being floppy. Yep. Look around the back and you'll see a gear. And take your fingernail and I think you roll that gear up and it'll tighten it. Alrighty. Micro serrated. Okay, good. I said serrated, micro serrated. Okay, if there are no more questions, thanks for watching. And Sarah and I will see you in a month. We're going to try to do our quilting the second Tuesday of every month. Tommy's going to do the third Tuesday of every month with his boxes. And I think the Sip and Sew girls are going to do the last Tuesday of every month. Isn't that correct for the wildflowers?
Yeah, although this month they are doing, they're switching weeks with Tommy. So next week on
Next week will be the
Tuesday,
Sip and Sew.
Yes.
Okay, next week will be the wildflowers. And we still haven't decided what we're going to do the first Tuesday of the month. We're just going to fly by the seat of our pants, I guess.
I guess so.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Come up with what people want to see.
But-
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much.
And
And-
I wanted to remind everyone that Sherry's coming on at 3 p.m.
3 tomorrow. Sherry,
to do the Louise dress.
if you ever, her little dress is hanging in the shop. If you haven't had a chance to come here and
It's
see them.
adorable. I actually
Oh
have
my
it-
gosh.
I have it over here.
They are adorable. Do you want to go grab it?
Yeah.
I'll show them. Sherry's sewing is just, she's like Joni. She's just meticulous. Today when I went into the store, she was sitting, putting this gorgeous little binding on these collars.
Mhm.
Not on this dress, but on a dress she was working on. And then she has binding around the hem, just perfectly done. Binding around the little belt. I mean, everything she does is just really meticulous. And she was my roommate this summer when we went to Baby Lock Tech, and she was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun.
And
Mhm.
she's working on some like gorgeous kits that we're showing tomorrow.
Oh,
for
okay,
the
I
dress.
betcha. And look at her gathering around here. It's just absolutely, absolutely perfect. Her garment sewing is just top notch. So, a little bow in the back, really cute.
That's adorable.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
All right.
well, I think that's all we have. So, so you said Tommy then will be the last Tuesday of the month with his peeps in the garden.
Yep.
Okay. All righty. We'll see you in a month.